Colleges today are responding to a new generation of students, academically qualified and matriculating with a disability, autism spectrum disorder. Like all college kids, they come with dreams.
I have a long series of aspirations that I intend to follow my entire life. I think they start with an IT major and a BA in biology, and to ground myself a minor in philosophy. And I think with those tools I can begin my career.
They also come with challenges.
I feel like I couldn't express my ideas well enough. Whether or not people understand me, whether or not people have debates about, about the particular subjects I talk about, it really doesn't matter. Because, you're just being you, and you're just doing what everyone else is trying to do, is trying to accomplish an assignment.
For me, it's really hard to go up to ask a teacher for help. It's very hard for me to take my time and after class to go speak with them. And maybe that I'm scared, or just socially anxious, or I'm afraid that they're going to judge me or be like, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?
It was kind of staggering to me that we had to go back and become case managers all over again when our son wanted to be independent and he didn't want to rely on us.
Through the years, most people refer to him as, the autism kid, the kid with Asperger's. James is an individual. He's a student and a very bright student. He's well able to do his work in the college with support.
Every semester, I've had a professor come to me or call me and say, "What do I do? I've never had a student with autism in my classes. How am I supposed to work with this student, etc." And yeah, it happens every semester.
The worst fear that anyone has is that there's going to be a disruptive student in the class who challenges your authority and disrupts other people or upsets other people, and that's something that you definitely always, you don't want students like that in your classroom.
I became inundated with phone calls and letters and emails and requests from parents of students who were on the autism spectrum who couldn't find anywhere for their students to go to college. They had really worked so hard to get their children to this age where they could succeed academically in college, and now there was no program for them.
In response to this need, Pace University launched the OASIS program to support both students with ASD disability and the faculty that would be teaching them.
Most university faculty don't have the benefit of having training in how to work with students who are diverse learners.
These kids are now 18, 19, 20 years old and becoming young adults. They're positioned really for the first time to be very effective, successful college students, but they're going to need some of the same techniques and approaches offered to them in high school.
The purpose of this video is to present strategies and methods that have proved successful at the college level in the OASIS program at Pace.
This project will help faculty understand and become more aware of the academic ability, the strengths, the sincere motivation, and the competence of students with learning differences in their classes, students with autism and students who have other learning disabilities. The faculty needs to get ready to work with them. So college has become the new inclusion frontier.
The first step for faculty is to recognize that students with ASD face challenges that are many and diverse.
The students in the program have a wide range of different kinds of problems. They're not all the same. Things that might be encountered in the classroom might be the student who is extremely reticent to speak. And at the other end of the spectrum, there could be someone who is overly talkative, and the professor might think that the student is rude. They may have auditory processing problems, so that in a lecture classroom, when the teacher is speaking and speaking and speaking and not stopping and pausing or putting things on the board, the pace might go too fast for them.
Because of the fact that he's so literal, he can walk into a situation and just not get what's going on. He's going to react with the literal words, as opposed to understanding the interplay around the words. So he could be in a classroom and get completely lost and, wander off.
There are certain areas that faculty need to be prepared for. Social anxiety, performance anxiety, the fact that they process information both often more slowly, definitely differently, and then they may also have information processing difficulties because of sensory problems.
Sometimes I don't feel part of the classroom. It's helpful if the teacher makes me feel included. But at the same time, I really don't like it when they call on me. Like those kind of classes where you're forced to participate, like classroom setting, like just I don't know the answer. I can't think of an answer, or I might know the answer, but it's not coming to me in words that I can describe verbally to them.
While the Office of Disability provides the professor with a letter outlining a student's disability and accommodations, misunderstandings can still take place.
On Blackboard, you will find links to 3 clips from the movie.
We had one particular instance where a professor was very open with her class about her background, and she shared a tremendous amount. We had 2 students from the OASIS program in that class.
The student that immediately caught my attention was kind of, he seemed like he was talking silently to himself. He was gesturing a lot with his hands.
This young man is very shy, very self-conscious. He has a significant learning disability, and he has Asperger's. The professor said to him, as she walked around the room, we're going to have group discussions, and they were already in their little groups, and she pointed to him to begin the discussion and to lead his group.
And I approached the student to ask him a personal question to check up on his group.
He responded to the teacher with a statement,
"Don't start with me."
He meant, I'm not ready. Give me a little time.
I was completely shocked. I didn't know what to do, so I walked away.
The professor took that to mean, don't start with me. Don't you start with me. And she actually called me.
And I came to learn that the student who said, "Don't start with me," speaks very literally. He literally meant, please don't start talking to me because I'm not ready to talk to you. And it wasn't a sarcastic or jab at me. And this has been a total revelation. And I had projected this kind of liability, this kind of danger onto my OASIS students. And I realize now that that was totally my baggage.
The next step for faculty is to clarify an accommodation that a student has requested and received from the university.
We do not modify the work. Our students do the work at the same level of rigor as the other college students at PACE. But we do give accommodations which our students and any student with a documented learning difference has the right to.
An accommodation has a very prescribed definition. The accommodation does not change anything about the curriculum. It just gives you some way to get more of it in less time, get less of it in more time, adapt the number of items on a page.
Many of our students will have note takers because it's very difficult for people with information processing challenges to actually listen intently in class, ask questions, take notes, and participate in groups.
Here at PACE, they actually pay another undergraduate student that's in the class to take notes. It's anonymous so that they don't know who the student is. The student doesn't necessarily know who the note taker is. They're regular notes. They pass them on to the professor, and then they come back to the student so that they know what's going on.
Very often our students will take exams in a distraction-free setting. They may have extended time and a half, or double time. But the exams are the exact same exams, and they are expected to perform at the same level as the other students. What the accommodations do is they allow our students to demonstrate their competence and their knowledge.
With accommodations in place, teachers can support students further with a teaching strategy known as UDL, or Universal Design for Learning.
Universal design is really about multiple means of access, multiple means of presentation, and then multiple means of engagement. How do you present information in other than just a lecture format?
I like it when they write on the board, which is what a lot of teachers don't do. You know, that in the college classroom, they just tend to do a lot of verbal talking, which is really hard to keep up with, and I just can't get it.
These are learners that are tech savvy. These are learners that have some rigidity in thinking, that have very specific experiences that they bring to the learning task. And so as professors, as educators, as administrators, we need to respond to who the learner is, not to what the book says.
I usually will bring in photographs of images from the books. If there are movie adaptations of the things that I'm talking about, I'll screen segments of it. And I do know at least one of my OASIS students appreciates that because he prefers getting the cues from film rather than read. He's a slower reader, he says, so rather than reading on the page. And I think this reinforces the content.
Another classroom strategy to engage all learners is group work, but group assignments should be considered with care.
Set up groups. Have cooperative learning groups. We know from educational research that cooperative learning is a very effective way because each student gets a role.
So on the first day of class, we did an exercise in what I called speed dating, and I gave them a list of questions. They asked each other these questions and rated each other on a scale of compatibility, from 1 being not very compatible to 4 being highly compatible. And they were told that they were going to be selecting themselves into groups, into writing groups.
So there are definite strategies that people can learn that do not take away from teaching at all, but just facilitate the kind of social dynamic in a classroom that is much more rewarding.
The OASIS students, with the help of their tutors, are always very prepared, always very on top of the course material. And this gave this particular student a sense, I think, of authority and competence. So he actually emerged as the leader of his small group. And he told me that he's not used to being a leader of his peers. I hear him keeping them on task. What page did you read to? Did you read this section yet? What do you think about this question? And the OASIS student is fulfilling this role in his small group.
And how have the class discussions begun?
A key player in the OASIS program at PACE is the academic coach, who provides support for the student outside the classroom.
The first couple of weeks of the semester, what we do is we put together all the syllabi and we start planning what is it that the students need to take care of immediately. I have one of our students' planner, and it's imperative that every OASIS student uses and has a planner. We basically start outlining exactly what is due in accordance with the syllabi. The OASIS program is a program that assists and supports. We don't do the work for them, we basically keep track of them.
We help them through the day, through the week, through testing, through note-taking, sometimes through communication. Or as the coaches, we're very happy if the professor questions us about something the student does. Let us try to address it, and even more so, I say to professors, if you think a problem may be coming, let me come into class.
Teaming with the academic coach gives the professor valuable insight into support for the student throughout the course.
So how do you think she's responding to group work?
I think she responds to the group work because she makes tons of notes.
Initially, I didn't think I needed to know that much about these students or where they were coming from. And I didn't think I needed to know this much about their personal backgrounds or the struggles that brought them to PACE.
She was primarily communicating to me through you for the first part of the semester.
Right.
I think this is the first email I've gotten from her.
Learning the strategy for this program is really the personalized touch, is the personalized attention. It gives me a higher sense of accountability to the program, to the students. I really feel now entitled to think about student achievement in terms of progress and improvement.
So if she feels good about this, then this is just really ready to go.
Yeah. We've learned how to engage in conversation with faculty, how to support them and not make them feel like this is a special ed program. It's not. We're simply assisting and making sure that they're fully supported.
As more and more students with autism spectrum disorder venture into the new frontier of college, their success will depend on support programs such as OASIS at PACE.
It's very clear the numbers are growing, and that's the big challenge. There needs to be a development of the resources to address continuing development and not just say, you know, if you don't pass this test, you're not graduating from here.
I believe James has not missed a day or been late today in the 2 years that we've been coming here. He's going to do the 5-year bachelor master's degree.
You can't generalize these students because they have such a different way of thinking that's almost refreshing, and they continue to fascinate me and teach me new things, and I continue to soak it up. I love it.
The greatest tragedy of all is the young adults and the adults who never got the services and the supports and then keep failing and failing and failing year after year.
This is what makes this kind of work so absolutely critical. You're saving lives on the one hand, on a one-to-one individual level, and you're saving the most potentially important people in terms of talent.
I really believe that faculty wants their students to be successful, and that this is an avenue that will enable them to make their teaching more gratifying.